I now call this meeting of the Silver Falls School District Board of Directors to order, and we will start with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Derek, would you read the board superintendent agreement tonight?
Yes. Members of the board and the superintendent will work together in good faith as a team in the best interest of students, modeling a willingness to learn together. Board members will recognize and respect the superintendent's responsibility to manage the school district and to direct employees in district and school matters. Board members will give careful consideration, listening to all perspectives, to all issues brought to the board by individuals and district leadership. The board may only make decisions at properly called meetings. Board members recognize that individual members have no authority to take individual action in policy or district and school administrative matters unless so authorized by board vote. Board members must follow the chain of responsibility and communicate directly with the superintendent when a question arises or a concern or complaint is voiced by a staff member, student, parent, or community member. Board members will endeavor to communicate directly with the superintendent or board chair prior to meetings of the board to address questions and or concerns about agenda items. Board members and superintendent recognize that good answers often require preparation in advance of board meetings. When a board member and or the superintendent has an individual concern, he or she must communicate one-on-one with any member of the board superintendent team as appropriate. In the interest of public transparency and full, robust debate, board members will endeavor to actively engage in and contribute to board discussions and to share their perspectives on topics before the board. Full participation from members in advance of a vote supports the board in making informed, well-considered decisions on important district matters.
Thank you, Derek. All right, the agenda review is next. I will take a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Phil?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Derek?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
All in favor?
Next up is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Phil?
Yes.
Owen?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Derek?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
All in favor?
All right, now it's time for our student representatives. Maddox is here to talk to us tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. My name is Maddox Fessler. I'm the Silverton High School ASB School Board Representative, and there's just a few things I'd like to talk to you with the upcoming homecoming week. First and foremost, we had a very successful last weekend, with hallway decorating. Our freshman class decorated their hallway, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Our sophomore class did Tangled. Our juniors went with Barbie, and our seniors with Super Mario Bros. We are actually very excited because this year our staff decided to participate, and they decorated their hallway Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. We have a few things coming up this Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, our agenda, we have an assembly, our homecoming assembly at 9:35. We have a presentation of our homecoming court. We have the sporting events for the day. We will have our very excited class lip sync, following which we will have the homecoming parade. I'm sure I'll see you guys all there. It will start at the park and end at the district office. Following that, we have the Future Fox Fair. That's K through 5. It's a carnival put on by our ASB students. Very lovely time. Then after that, we have the football game at 7 p.m. The theme is Spirit Out, orange, black, silver, white. Following the football game, we have our annual bonfire at the high school, just behind the soccer fields. And then on Friday, we have our homecoming dance in the evening at Silverton High School. Our dance theme is Hollywood. Sports this week, we have volleyball tonight here at Silverton High School. Girls soccer on Tuesday is away at West Albany. Boys soccer is home tomorrow versus West Albany. Wednesday, our volleyball team will travel to Crescent Valley. Thursday, home football game versus McKay. Very excited. And then on Saturday, cross country has a meet. Thank you guys so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our school and principal report. Silverton Middle School is the featured school this evening, and Brett Davison, we would love to hear from you. Come on down.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming to this building to have your meetings. So it'll be one of the things I point out a little bit later. But first, I think everybody got a handout there. I won't spend a ton of time with all the numbers. I just like to put the demographic information, our STAR scores on there, and then also our enrollment, and especially here with our enrollment, because this is so it's my 7th year here, and it's the 8th year of the middle school being in the configuration that it is. And you can see back to 2016-17, the first year, we were at 451, and we're about back at that same number after peaking in 2019 and 20. That year, actually, we hit 501 for about 2 days, and then dipped back down. But we saw, one of the things that we were working with, or I was working with Leslie for a while, we saw some small classes coming. So that dip that you see in 2022 and 23 were actually small classes that were already coming up. And then COVID made that a little bit worse. And so we dipped down pretty far. But the weird thing about it is this year we were supposed to have 395 as our enrollment. But for some reason, people just come out of the woodwork 2-3 weeks before school starts, as those of you in education know. People see school buses driving around, and they show up. And so right now we're at 442, which is a good number. I wish those class sizes were equal. You see 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We could use some 6th and 7th graders, but we're closed for 8th grade because we want to be about 150 is where our sweet spot is. So anyway, that just gives you a snapshot of where we've been over the last 8 years with numbers. You see our demographics there. The only thing I want to point out, because I don't think it gets pointed out enough, is that the special ed percent of 21, only in mentioning that we have 4 dedicated classrooms in the middle school for special ed programs, and that's 2 LRC classrooms, Learning Resource Center classrooms with Sheldon Lazier and Dan Gorgas and their staff, a basic skills classroom, Brian Saturn and his staff, and then an SLP, a structured learning program with Frank Gauntz and his staff. And I just want to mention them specifically because anybody in education who has worked with special ed staff know, especially the good ones, the dedication, the patience, the resilience that they offer, and it makes everyone's life so much easier. Working with kids that are below level, with their skills just to navigate through the day, they put in so much work, the licensed and classified staff. And so we have 4 of those dedicated classrooms here, and it helps us out a bunch, and they're fantastic. Our STAR scores are listed right there. The only thing I'll mention about those is that between 15 to 20% on top of those percents are what we call on watch. And so those are at or above grade level in reading and math. And then we have about 15 to 20% on top of that are on watch, which basically means they're close. And so, as you know, there was impact with COVID, and we're getting back into what school is really like. And so it's our hope that with good interventions and good classroom teaching and all that, we can get everybody to rise up, but those on-watch kids to be on grade level by the time they hit high school, because that's when it becomes very real in terms of what level they're at. And also, too, just to mention a little bit with our academics, and as you guys know, the STAR scores, we used to do those 6 or 7 times a year, and now we're down to 3, and we're shifting towards the assessments that the teachers are making, moving into data team cycles with PLCs, so they can make their own assessments and then really know where those kids are in their classroom. And I'm just looking forward to that process because I think that'll be really valuable kind of on-the-ground data that teachers have. This is STAR is helpful, of course, but that stuff will be really applicable to teachers. So I always like to look at this question, how are we doing this year? Obviously, you guys know that the last few years have been tough. I think a lot of us were so optimistic last year, coming back to normal for the first time, get distance learning and hybrid learning and all the other things in the rearview mirror. And we didn't realize how difficult last year was going to be transitioning to real school again for staff and students. And I think it drained staff. And I think it was just hard for kids to get back into it. If you haven't noticed, they still wear pajamas on a regular basis. We just, for homecoming week, we did pajama dress-up day, and I don't know why we do that still, high school people, because kids wear pajamas to school now. It's a thing. But just getting back used to school was tough. And I think for the first time, the staff that I've talked to and the kids, it feels very normal, however much normal can be at a middle school. But yeah, Phil got me on that one. But it feels very good. Worlds better than it has for quite a while. So that's encouraging. And we're getting back to the normal stuff. We're home, like Maddox said, homecoming week is this week, dress-up days, the game on Thursday. We're having a dance, if you guys are bored, on October 20th. We always need supervisors for a middle school dance, so you can come to that. And then we're restarting things like Veterans Assembly, where a Veterans Day celebration that we haven't been able to do for a while. And so working with our local veterans and bringing them in and celebrating them and hopefully have a helicopter land and do all the stuff that we used to do. It just feels really good to get back to that kind of stuff. And also a shout out to, at the middle school, we have the ability to have a schedule where I have a leadership class just like the high school does. So we have a group of leadership kids and Jackie Renaud runs that. And between Jackie and those kids, they are just the hub of activity for our whole school. And we let them plan a lot, and so they do a lot of stuff. They make our whole float. Parents don't do it. They make our stuff. They plan our days. They do lots of stuff with Jackie's guidance. And so it's just really nice to see them, developing those leadership skills. Moving on to just some different goals that obviously look familiar to you guys because there are district goals. Each student on track to graduate. So that's, I talked about that a little bit with STAR, our PLCs, with our assessment, with our data teams, and our SPED support programs. We have a lot of resources here at the middle school to get kids where they need to go. Goal number 2 was social emotional. I've talked about this before, and so I won't talk too much more about it, but our advisory groups are kind of our home room where our teachers are that, basically school parent, keeping track of their grades. They are, watching them, helping them, getting them what they need, communicating with parents. And then also a couple additions that I think are worth pointing out. For those of you who know this building, right on the other side of this wall is the old staff room. And so I hired Wendy Haugen as a second counselor to be with Paula Cross, and we shuffled some things around to make that kind of a counseling center. And so it's just a great spot for kids to be able to go to. We have a bigger meeting room than my office now. And just the two of them working together has been really good. And then Josh Craig, I got him to come over from the high school to here to be basically a student support person or dean of students, whatever you'd want to call it. And if you know Josh, you know his energy fits middle school perfect. He has been such a positive, energetic, just connecting with kids immediately person that is really valuable. And so he's jumped right in and has done a ton already. And so adding him to the team that we already have and the work that Therese does with our student support team and the counselors and SPED has been a really good addition. So I wanted to point them out for sure. And then I'll just go to goal number 3 and just say when I came here 7 years ago, and I took my first tour with Andy Belando of this campus, I was surprised. And that's coming from somebody who grew up, and I would say grew up in this school, well, literally. and had worked here, and then worked at the new high school, and then went to West Albany just for a few years and came back and walked around and just did not understand what was happening. Took that tour and trying to figure out the layout, that there's a high school football room on the campus and all these things and how spread out it was, and it was a little disorienting. But being a person who doesn't want to just wallow in what's wrong, just said to myself, okay, I've got two main goals, is to try to get the staff to sort of move on from being upset about being moved, but then also start work with the district and community about rectifying the situation. And not just for the middle school, but for the district. And so, so pretty much, I didn't start that right away my first year, because it's your first year and there's things to do. But almost immediately we jumped into doing some long-range stuff and trying to figure things out. And I almost say this every presentation, just to keep it out there, but from talking to people who made the decision at the time, I believe the district and the board made the best decision that they could at the time for what had to happen, because the bonds had failed in 2013-14. Eugene Field was closed, and the shuffle started of in-town schools. And so this was the best solution that they had at the time, and I believe that. But it was a temporary solution, and so we're now in year 8 of that temporary solution. And so I just want to put that out there. And also too, and I've talked about these things in the past, but I want to give a shout out to my evergreen friends that are here, and to make sure that I'm clear that I'm not saying that Silverton Middle School is the only school in the district that has issues. And so, because I was there for a year, and all our buildings have issues, and so these aren't unique to us necessarily. But I just a short list, and this is not an exhaustive list, but like I mentioned with meeting rooms, my office is the biggest meeting room that we have, and it can fit maybe 6 people comfortably. And that may sound like a little thing, but people who work in schools know that you meet with people all the time, with groups of people all the time. I think I've cleared out at least 4 closets to put staff members in randomly throughout the building. Which doesn't feel good when you're shoving somebody in a little hole with no windows and saying, yeah, we really appreciate you being here. We've done what other people have done with mitigating radon, high lead levels in the water. The asbestos walls and ceilings have been an issue. This room, for example, so all the high parts of these walls were high content asbestos, and so when we moved here, they covered them with so much paint to seal it in, that the echo and the sound in this room is terrible. It doesn't sound too bad right now, but when we have 200 kids in here for lunch, it's not good. But then I can't put anything on the walls because it's asbestos. So just things like that throughout the building. Water leaks in the roof, which is a regular occurrence in the old building and in the new parts of the building. We never seem to know where it comes from, and the patches never seem to be permanent. And the abandoned brick structure that is seismically unsafe, and I know some people don't think that's a big deal, and I guess maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal to walk around an abandoned building every day, to have your campus go around an abandoned building. But I ask people the question, like, what message does that send to staff and students? That this is what we're working around. And then even things just, electrical outlets and all that. And for me, a lot of the times working with the district, it's always a question of how much money do we put into this campus? And so, and even not just cash, but at the hours, like the maintenance department spends dozens and dozens and dozens of hours here trying to figure out how to make the heat work, or the heat turn off, or the AC work in the places that it's supposed to work sometimes, to buying more mods that have bigger classrooms, and then giving one to the high school so they can get out of the music room. I mean, just the cost of all that. And even things, sealing the James Street wing for $150,000. For how much longer, I don't know. And so just the cost of those things and the balance of at what point do we keep putting money into it, or should I? At what point is it responsible or not is a continual issue for me. And then just, and the layout and for kids. So again, walking around the old building all the time. And then our main hallway is outside, and in Oregon, it rains. And so they're walking outside, they're standing outside waiting for their teacher to run inside and go to the bathroom and run back and getting rained on and just the logistics of that. The other main hallway is through the gym. And just the disjointed nature of our campus being in 3 sections separated from each other. Safety is an issue for us, just like it is for a lot of schools, but we have a lot of exterior access points, I think 40 or 41, somewhere in there. A lot directly into classrooms from James Street, some into the old building that then have access to the other wings, and then 2 classrooms that are outside the fenced area completely, that kids have to have a key to go inside to the main building to go to the bathroom. And then having our lunch and PE out by the tennis courts, which is open to James Street, people to walk right in or walk in through the grass from the north side. And we have to shoo people away from our campus all the time, constantly. Even had one instance where the maintenance guys came in, left the gate open to climb up on something, and two people walk right into our campus that were just wandering around town. So it's just a common thing, and our campus is not necessarily as secure as others. And then, we have heating and cooling issues just like other people. And I know, too, that I'm preaching to the choir, and I know that some of you have heard me give the same speech for many years, but I wouldn't feel like I'm kind of representing my staff like I should unless I bring up these issues. And again, to say to parents and kids all the time, we obviously want to make this school feel as good as it can be when they come, and we feel like it is as safe as it can be and as welcoming as we can be. And so we do our best in that, but we still want to point out where we think it's deficient. And I do appreciate this board and previous boards that have been willing to tackle the district issues, not just the middle school, but all schools in our district, and just appreciate that. And then on a logistical note, between the parade and the homecoming game from about 4:30 to 6:30, we'll be doing tours of the building, just a collection of some staff and community members that anybody who wants to come by can get a tour of the building, and we'll just show them what we're in so that they know. Because I can't tell you how many people I talk to who walk in for the first time and still don't get that we don't use that old building. Even people that have gone here and know that it's abandoned, they have to see it. And so that's why I want to do some tours and get community in here so they can take a look. So I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Board members, do you have any questions?
I guess,
oh, go ahead.
are you opening the middle, or are you keeping that closed for that tour?
We are opening for people to look in,
Okay.
but our insurance company doesn't want people going in there.
So look in but not step in.
Yeah, look, no touch.
I just want to mention that you said that, having to avoid the condemned building or work around a condemned building isn't that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, but I think it is a big deal in the sense of your school's not cohesive. There's no chance for everybody to feel like they are a part of this same building. And it's a huge safety concern. I mean, I'll keep saying this, to secure the perimeter. What if there is an emergency in that wing and you are in your office and you cannot get over there? I mean, that is, to me, the biggest problem that we have. And people question, well, they say, well, why don't we just repair it? Well, that is the whole problem, is the footprint. We need to build a 2-story building that goes up so we can make sure that we can secure the perimeter and not have this crazy, it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's well said.
Brett, I just want to compliment you on your presentation of a lot of times in any line of work, we talk acronyms and abbreviations, and you did a good job of explaining what different things meant instead of just using the acronym or whatever and then moving on and people wondering what it was. I appreciate that. That's good work.
Yeah, we have a lot of those in education.
We sure do.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the Silver Falls Education Association. Welcome, come on down. You were celebrating homecoming today, weren't you?
We are. Today was movie dress-up day, and a lot of us went Barbie, so, this completes the ensemble. This was me today.
Perfect.
So, we had a good time. If you didn't get a chance to go over to see the hallways, oh, you missed out. They did a fantastic job. It's always so much fun. So I'm Lori Wire, and I'm the president of SFEA. I met most of you last time, but not all of you, so nice to meet you. We're coming up on our 6-week grading period at the end of the week. So teachers have just been working really hard, getting into our school year, getting to know the kids, learning synergy, which has been huge for us, but it's all coming together. On the contract side, we just recently finalized an MOU for our peer program. We signed a 1-year MOU. There are going to be some changes in the program, but I think that they're going to be really good changes that we agree that were needed and necessary, and hopefully we have a really successful year in implementing those, and it turns out just how we hoped, right?
Yes.
Yes. We are also, October 1st marked the date that is in the language for our class size targets, which is new for us this year. So I know there are some that are over where those teachers are working with their principals, as they should, so we're very anxious to see how that will all work out. How many, I don't have numbers right now, but how many classrooms it has affected and just how these things are resolved. So it's going to be very interesting. It would be an interesting first year, and we're really excited to have this language in our contract now. So really that's about it. That really doesn't sound like a lot, but it seems like I've seen Dan constantly working on things, but those are the big things that we've been working on. So here we go for our next 6-week grading period and see what happens then. So, any questions for us?
Laura, I just want to say thanks for a great communications meeting last Thursday. I thought we were able to work through a lot of issues that we can just keep a running, dialogue on and bounce ideas off each other. I felt like it was really a collaborative meeting. It's my first time, now being part of this team this year. So I just want to commend you and your team for a real productive meeting.
Thank you. We felt like it went really well. I think we established some really good norms at our kickoff meeting in August, and I think it'll be a good collaboration. And then next month you'll get forum to where you'll get to meet representatives from different schools. So it'll be a good experience. Any questions for us?
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the public comment item. The Silver Falls School Board invites and encourages citizen attendance at regular meetings of the board and at board work sessions. All board business meetings, except for executive session, are open to the public and are conducted in public. Board business meetings are designed to keep presentations and deliberations efficient and effective. The board will not take any action in a meeting on non-agenda issues raised during the public comment period. The board may refer the issue to the superintendent for review, place it on a future board agenda, or choose not to take further action. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and be recognized by the board chair. If attending remotely, please use the raise hand feature within Zoom. For the record, please provide your name and relationship to the district. Please keep individual remarks to 3 minutes. If speaking as a representative on behalf of a group of 3 or more, comment time will be extended to 5 minutes. A second public comment period will occur later in the meeting that is specific to discussion and action items only. The board will not hear complaints against individual district staff or board members during public comment. Please understand that the board's primary role is to listen, and you likely will not receive an immediate response. Finally, remember, we all model the way for our students and ask that you share your thoughts respectfully and in accordance with the Silver Falls School District Board Decorum Agreement. With that, is there anybody in the audience who would like to come to the table? I won't say take the stand. That sounds way too formal.
It's okay, I can use my, okay.
Okay. All right, so can you,
There's someone else raised their hand, it was Carl, so there's 2.
okay. Would you state your name, your relationship to the district, and the topic that you're speaking on?
Yes, my name is Rebecca Murphy. My relationship to the district is kind of long. That's part
It's
of my.
okay.
Okay.
And then your topic?
My topic is on the board as it relates to Evergreen Elementary. And
Okay.
I'm speaking on behalf of the parent-teacher club there.
So then you have 5 minutes, and Aaron will warn you.
I'll give you a 30-second kind of warning.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Murphy. My place of residence is 614 Keene Avenue, Silverton. I am a lifelong resident of Silverton. I graduated from Silverton High School in 2001 and attended Evergreen Elementary K through 8. My father, Jim Sin, served first on Evergreen School Board and then on this school board for 8 years when the bond measure did pass. I have 4 children attending Evergreen. I'm currently serving as the president of our parent-teacher club there at Evergreen, and I have been asked to testify on behalf of that club, the parent-teacher club, regarding how the bond addresses facilities at Evergreen Elementary. We would like to begin by thanking the school district and its representatives for taking the time in the bond planning stages to visit our school, keep us updated on the progress of the bond, and ask for feedback on key issues in order to draft a well-informed measure that reflects the unique nature of our district. This was done more than once, and we appreciate the goal of these efforts to build trust and create a bond that we can all stand behind. In particular, we would like to thank the district for asking what Evergreen's greatest needs were from the facility standpoint, and for listening when we communicated our need for a gymnasium with additional classroom space. Last spring, the draft version of the bond was presented to our school. It included a gym. This inclusion communicated a respect for our community, and it was the realization of a dream that the community has had for decades. You can imagine our dismay upon learning via an Our Town article that Evergreen would not in fact have a gym included in the final bond measure. It is this exclusion that I would like to address this evening. First, it has been communicated consistently that a primary aim of the bond is to bring our district facilities up to the same level, in quotes. This is seen in the form of bringing windows, roofs, and HVAC systems up to current standards. However, adding covered play sheds to schools that already have gyms, and in one case, adding a gym to a school that already has a gym, while leaving Evergreen as the only school without one, is a clear failure to bring all the schools up to the same level of functionality. Second, probably the most repeated goal of this bond is warm, safe, and dry. At Evergreen, we agree that every student and staff member of our district should be able to engage in education in an environment that meets all 3 of these basic standards: warm, safe, dry. However, Evergreen students at PE and recess during winter months have always had to deal with conditions that are often neither warm nor dry, and by extension, not safe. When you add consideration of the PE teacher who spends the entire afternoon in Evergreen's play shed over the winter, I think you'll agree that a bond without a gym for Evergreen fails to meet the warm, safe, and dry standard. Third, it was surprising to read in Our Town that the reason Evergreen will not receive a gym is because, quote, residents said they are satisfied with the current structure and view other upgrades as a priority, end quote. We have found residents who had concerns about the estimated cost of the gym. And we have talked to many in our community who would prioritize a gym above all other upgrades, but we have yet to find anyone in our community that does not want a gym. If there was an intent in drafting the bond to reflect the wishes of our community, the bond approved by the school board failed in that regard. It is not our intent to communicate an anti-bond sentiment from the Evergreen community. As with every community in this district, there are some who will vote for the bond and some who will not. What we do want to communicate is that it seems that the stated goals of the bond were forgotten somewhere along the way, which will leave Evergreen lagging significantly behind the rest of the district's facilities in the event that the bond passes. We would like this statement to reach the ears of those who need to hear it and for it to be officially on record in the event that an opportunity to rectify the situation should arise. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Is there anybody online that would like to speak?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay. Carl, you're it.
Good evening. I'm Carl Detweiler, community member, went to school at Central Powell, graduated Silverton High School. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for all of you being here.
Hold on just a second. Topic?
Topic is going to be the bond.
And are you speaking for yourself or a group of three or more?
I am speaking for myself at this point.
Okay, so you'll have 3 minutes and Aaron will signal you.
Thank you. I also wanted to begin by saying thank you to our superintendent for being open, answering the phone, and, you know, so the community can come to him, and also the board members I've reached out to in the last week or so. I'm not against a bond, and I heard Brett talk about this facility here, and I agree. There's a lot of issues at this facility, there's issues at other facilities. I'm concerned about the price, but that's beside the point. I think we can do better. But the thing that's really been eating at me lately, and I don't know if anybody can answer a quick question for me that'll lead into my point, but how many gyms or basements are in the school district at the schools? Does anybody know? Or okay.
Be all speculation if we tried to answer that.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is on the bond website, something came to my attention today, and it's kind of mistruths, I would call it, as this process has went through. And from the bond website, it talks about the age of the buildings, says several elementary schools in the district have basements that cannot be entered without protective equipment due to black mold and water intrusion. I know Evergreen has a basement, I know Pradham has a basement, Central Howell has a basement, Silvercrest has a basement. My daughter is in the Central Howell basement for music class. I don't know about the other schools. I know Central Howell did have an issue where you did have to wear a mask to enter that basement. I think it was sometime in the summer. It has since been addressed. So it's information like this on your website that is selling fear as far as I'm concerned. And that's not a good way of doing business as far as I'm concerned. The other thing is in the voters pamphlet. It talks about $1.60 additional per thousand. That's correct. It's $1.60 per thousand. I think it's kind of like a used car salesman tactic. You're leaving out details. There's $2.02 that will be additional after 2027. And for an operation like ours, we've heard EFU doesn't pay, you know, they get a reduced amount. Our family is a farm family. We've acquired land over years that we don't really plan on selling because that's what we use to grow food, farm, and we have mortgages on that land. And this bond in itself will cost our operation close to $900 a month. And I hear people saying in town it's going to cost $30 a month. Well, we're supporting 4 families.
Seconds.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Thank you.
You had 30 seconds to go.
Oh, I have 30 seconds? Okay. Well, I would just say thank you guys for hearing me tonight and let me bring in some of my concerns. And I hope as a district we can all come together and get our buildings repaired, but at this point, it's too expensive for me at this point, so.
Carl, I just want to say first that I'm sure our staff heard about your comment about the basements, and I'm sure that they will, address that. Secondly, the bond, the language on the ballot, I think that we didn't have a choice. Like, you have to only address what people are actually voting on and how much that will increase their taxes. Am I right? Steve C. would be the person to answer that.
Yeah, that language is prescribed by the Secretary of State. That's the way that has to be presented.
Okay.
So I hear you, and there are other constraints that I want to make sure people realize.
And I do know that you guys do have it on your bond website, the true little pictogram of the total cost of the bond. I guess it's just everywhere else it's being portrayed as only an additional $1.60, which I think is kind of unfair. So, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Carl. Is there anybody else? Oh, I'm assuming there's still nobody.
We do have a hand raised.
Okay.
We have Megan has her hand raised.
Okay,
Daniel, can you
we
promote
can
her?
invite Megan.
Did it disappear for you, Daniel? That name disappeared off the attendee and panelist list. So
Okay.
I'll keep an eye out for the second time around.
Okay, anybody else in the audience who would like to give a public comment? All right, we will move on then to administrator and staff reports, and the first is the superintendent report. The bond oversight committee applicants will be included. Scott, are you going to be there?
I'll stay here for that. Well, thank you, Jennifer, and I wanted to come back to you tonight because I have a list of names to share. Our process is concluded to select the Bond Oversight Committee going forward when the bond passes. And I'd like to take a minute to just remind everybody that in 7 days, next week, ballots will start being officially mailed out. And we are less than 1 month to Election Day. And so lots of exciting things happening. And one of the things that we decided to do a couple months ago, this idea of forming the Bond Oversight Committee beforehand. Most districts, almost all districts, wait until their bonds are passed to set up the Bond Oversight Committee, but we decided to do it beforehand because we want the public to know exactly who will be members of that committee to look over the spending of bond dollars all the way up until 95% of bond dollars have been spent. So this is a multi-year commitment for these individuals, not a life sentence by any means, but if community members so choose, they will be members of this committee for several years. So as you know, a month or so ago, I came to you to present the original idea, and the board, in all its wisdom, said that it would be a good idea if we had guiding principles. So this set of guiding principles that committee members could review and decide to fill out an application if they felt that they were in agreement with those guiding principles. Those are on our bond website under Oversight, and they're also on Board Book as well. Then we went into the selection process, the application window, and then the selection process. That application window closed on Friday the 29th. Then we went about organizing those applications, and then I had each one of our 7 board members come in and independently review every single one of the 29 applications that were submitted. And then as part of that, at the end of that, I came back to for you and I individually to go over your feedback.
And we took that feedback and painstakingly tried to take it all together and make sure that, I would say almost all of it was taken into account when we chose the final list. And that list I'd like to share for you tonight. You'll take action on it later. And before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the group. So there were 29 applications. There's 17 Bond Oversight Committee members that are on the finalist list that you will approve, hopefully, tonight. 11 are men, 6 are women. Every elementary, middle, and K-8 school in the district is represented by current or former parents, grandparents, and alumni. That was a commitment that I made to every school community at each one of our listening sessions this past year. It's very important. 2 members are former SFSD board members. 7 have experience in finance, ranging from accounting, auditing, investigations, all the way to business owners and investing. The list includes current and former civic leaders, project managers from a variety of fields. 5 individuals have engineering or construction backgrounds. And lastly, both the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee and the Bond Advisory Committee are represented, as is the Oversight Committee for the Phase 2 Silverton High School bond. So there's some historical perspective there as well. It was very tough to make these decisions. I will say every single one of the applications was extremely competitive. And that piece, I think, is really symbolic of the amount of care that has gone in by our community to volunteer their time to serve on such an important committee. This is the official list. You had the list as of Friday. These are all names that you have gone over at length. These will be posted to our community. So they're in alphabetical order, these individuals, plus on the right-hand side is a little bit about the experience that they bring to the table. None of these names are new since Friday, since you received this list. And I think all of the individuals on this list, you will find that you had that your input was taken into account. Any questions on that?
No questions, but I'd like to make a comment just
Sure,
for
Derek, go right ahead.
getting a chance to review just the caliber of folks that put in that aren't on the list. I was very impressed and grateful that people were willing to put their time in and throw their name out there. So it was a highly impressive group of folks, so I appreciate that.
I agree, and that came up in every single one of our conversations together after the applications were reviewed. These were some tough decisions to make.
Yeah, we were blessed to have so many good applicants and so many in construction too, because remember, we were worried, worried that we might not get that, and we had 5, so that's great.
Any other comments?
I was just grateful that people put their name in the hat. That there was, I don't think the process would be, people willing to volunteer in that way is very grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, the 29, I think it was 29 applicants we had.
Yes, 29.
You know, that were all, every one of them was quality applicants, and just shows that the care that our community has for, you know, the future of our kids and our schools. So I appreciate everybody, the 29 who applied. It's a big commitment.
Just some other bond work that's in progress at the moment. I am going to every PTCC, PTC, PTTT, PTT meeting. We all call them something different here, but you get the idea. I also want to make sure that I publicly thank each and every board member for their willingness to take time out of their day to come with me. Tomorrow, I will be visiting 3 schools. I have Victor Point at 2:30, and Owen and Aaron and Derek will be going with me to that. Then I have to race over to Scotts Mills and meet Tom at Scotts Mills to go to their PTC meeting. And then later that night, I believe Josh is going with me to Robert Frost. And so I cannot thank you enough. I am there to share information. Of course, the district is in an information sharing mode, but those of you who have accompanied me already and will continue to, you do a phenomenal job of advocacy and really sticking to the compelling reasons about why this is so important for this community. Homecoming week, of course, we're in that right now. We have lots of thinking around the parade, the football game, and then tours at Silverton Middle School. We've been working really hard on that as part of our communication plan and informing the public about the dire needs of our facilities. School signage is complete. You'll see that at every one of our Silver Falls School District facilities. And the Our Town series forges on, and that's a piece from the last edition of Our Town, and the edition coming up will be on the middle school, solely on the middle school project. And that's been a real big help as well to make sure that we're reaching all of our voters, especially those who don't tend to use social media for information. And there are some of our signs there. Any questions from the board at this time for bond oversight or anything other?
I have
related?
a comment real quick, because talking to some people about concerns of not doing anything that is maybe unnecessary or overly artistic that won't stand the test of time when we're doing our construction. And I know I mentioned this before. I think that people need to realize that the guiding principles of durable, long-lasting, simple, maintainable, sturdy, they're all there. And for the community members that are still concerned, because I've heard it multiple times, about that we're going to build something that's not going to be reliable, this oversight committee is here to keep us accountable, to make sure that we hold these principles. So I just want to make sure people who are voting are aware of these principles, and also the oversight committee. So I'm very grateful for the people that are on the list, and you taking putting that ahead of time before the vote of the bond, so people know who is going to be reviewing this. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, not only the BOC will be, those principles could be used in that capacity, and also hiring whoever is the architect, project manager, because to me that's the most important point, is that we are hiring those people to fit our community. We're not hiring, this isn't their project to do what they want to do. It's our project. And so I really appreciate the guiding principles too. So way to go, team, for getting that out there.
Jennifer, if I might say something in that respect too, is just to remember that we will have another committee, and that'll be a design committee, a group. And so for community members and folks that, maybe wanted to be on the oversight committee, you may actually have a bigger impact on the design committee potentially, or contribution there. So that'll be coming too.
Good point, Owen.
Yeah, very good point, Owen. There will be tons of opportunity for that as well. We need all the help we can get. I also want to publicly thank board member Owen Von Flew for this idea to form the Bond Oversight Committee beforehand. To me, it makes all the sense in the world. We are a multi-generational community. Roots go deep here, and I think it's important that the community knows who it will be on the oversight that will be looking out after the district's best interest.
Agree. Really good teamwork. Thank you, Owen, for pressing that idea, and for everybody else for running with it. All right, Division 22?
Yes, if that's all the questions, that's great. Also on the agenda is Division 22. I've let you know this morning to take a look at it. Hopefully you have. We are in compliance with our instructional minutes. Does anybody have any question or comment?
It's a real boring report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the good way. Boring in the good way.
Boring in the good way. Thank you so much.
All right, Steve, are you going to give us the financial report tonight?
Well, I'm just going to speak to enrollment tonight.
Okay.
That's okay, Jennifer.
That's fine. It says financial
yeah,
report. So.
I'll always include enrollment as I have since the pandemic started, because it's ever-changing. But financials will bring back next month for 23-24 year-to-date. We did just start our audit, final audit field work for fiscal year 22-23 today. So we had a lot of final work last week leading up to today to be able to get them everything, and it should put us on a path to have our audited financial statement by sometime in December. So as far as enrollment, I sat here last month, and I believe we were still in the first week of school, and we had good news to report, but also knowing that we still had another 5 or 6 days before our 10-day drops for kids that didn't return. So I'm happy to report that we remained static from where we were last month. I think it was 3748 in September, and as of October 1st, we were at 3,749. So we actually had bumped up after the board meeting, and then we did see 10 or 12 10-day drops. And so compared to October 1st last year, we are 77 students higher, or 2.1%, and 92 students higher than where we finished last school year. So, and about 40 to 50 higher than what we budgeted where we're at right now. So that's great news. So we've recovered 54% of what was lost from our low point of June of 2022. So, we monitor this daily, and Heidi does a great job of, we transitioned to student information systems this year to Synergy, so there's been a lot going on with that as well. And so Heidi did a wonderful job bringing our buildings up to speed on that, and I think they're all caught up. So yeah, so that's really all I had to share for this evening.
Really good news.
Yeah.
Any questions for Steve about enrollment? All right. I think we have discussion items next. So the item is described as bond discussion, and I rarely write things during board meetings or prepare things, but I did it this time. I'm just going to read kind of an intro to this discussion, and then I think Aaron will probably have some things to add, and then we can just have a discussion. And there's not really we don't have an action item associated with this. It's just starting a discussion. So here we go. We are at the point where there could be an unexpected need to discontinue the use of SMS. Likewise, as Brett was discussing, we may have to make the hard decision to discontinue the use of SMS based on overall safety and/or financial considerations. The November bond measure would provide what we think is the best solution. The superintendent has been putting all of the resources he has at his disposal into the effort to pass this bond. This part of the agenda is an opportunity to start discussing the identification of other possible solutions in the event that the November bond measure does not pass. And I'm not talking just about SMS in general, but that's the one thing that is high on the list of what are we going to do. In conversations leading up to this discussion item, it's clear that Scott wouldn't have the opportunity to work on this type of planning until after the election. Moreover, it could take up to a year to have a plan that the board could take action on. So this is a long-term kind of discussion. But I wanted to open it up to Aaron first, because he and I have talked to Scott about what if this bond doesn't pass. Because we meet a couple times a week together, and so we've had those discussions, and so I wanted Aaron to be able to chime in first, and then we'll just open up to general conversation.
Yeah, I think, and I'll use this term that I had the pleasure, as we talked about sharing at the PTC meetings. I got to visit Silvercrest with Scott, and then also Evergreen here this past week. And the term I use, and I've told both the PTCs that I'm not one to speak in hyperbole. I'm not one to try to inflate things. But the term I like to use is existential crossroads when it comes to facilities. We're there. And if this bond does not pass, we could be in a position to make some very, very hard decisions. Not just on this building, but across every building in our district. If necessary repairs don't get into the buildings that need it, what happens if they become uninhabitable? What kind of shell game do we have to play, unfortunately, with our students to put them to places where they can have a safe learning experience? We have to play the what-if game a little bit about what are we going to do. Because just quite frankly, there's not enough money in the general fund. Again, I'm preaching the choir here, to fill the need for our facilities here in this district. We have to start thinking about what do we do. What happens if this building here becomes uninhabitable? Do we do double shifts at the high school? Again, I'm just talking a little bit out in the open here, but that could be a reality, which I don't think that would be a situation our community would really, really have a high regard for or tolerate for very long. I don't say that as, and please don't hear me, I'm not trying to say this as any type of threat or any type of strong arming here. But I do think as public servants, we're beholden to talk about the what if this bond doesn't pass. So, we've had those discussions, like Jennifer said, with Scott, but we did want to open it up to our board. Because it could be a reality. We know that from our polling data that this could be a razor-thin vote. Right? We've got a good feeling that this is going to pass, but again, we won't know here for another month. So it behooves us to talk about the what if this bond doesn't pass.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'll go. Because I was on this from the beginning with you too, Aaron, and one, I wanted to thank Rebecca. I know how difficult it can be to come up and talk to the board, and stressful. Maybe you're a little braver than me, and for your community representing yourself so well, so kindly, and so professionally. It was heard, and thank you. About the bond, I've heard rumors, or there's some people out there thinking that the school board themselves have discussed this plan. I mentioned this at the one PTCC I was at, and the whole step was based on listening to the community to the best of our ability, and we did the listening sessions. We went out to middle schools, a lot of schools in the middle of COVID, and then went back again for the bond. And the school board, the previous board, just approved the work of all the many, many hours of the previous committees. So there was no backroom talks. It was just honoring the work of the many, many community members from the long-range facilities, the bond advisory committees, and all the listening sessions to draft this plan to show how important all the communities are of our entire district, and wanting to honor the wishes of those people. I personally just see every school being so valuable, and that was heard loud and clear at every session that I was at. And I really view this thing as our community as that, from the top to the bottom, of the mountains to the valley. And I am in support of this thing, full board. I feel like we are valuing every single individual community, and every community gets touched by this. And I cannot be more than 100% on that.
Thanks, Josh. Other thoughts?
Yep, I'll go. I guess this discussion rotates around the question, what happens what happens if the bond doesn't pass? What's going to happen? We're going to keep things going as long as we can. But at some point in the future, you can't keep this building especially. This is by far the worst building. It's not what the kids deserve. It's not what Silverton expects for their community. But what happens if it doesn't pass? You know, we got talented staff, and we're gonna keep it going as long as we can, but at some point, the building will be uninhabitable. You know, is that 2 years? Is that 6? Is that 4? I don't know, but it will happen. And in order to keep it going for that period of time, you're gonna have a lot more repairs, expensive repairs. And Lord knows what they're gonna be, roofs, just stuff. And it's also gonna, those repairs are also gonna be necessary at all the other buildings, you know, in time. You just need, you gotta keep the roofs going, you gotta keep the foundation, you gotta keep the septics going. You have to do all these things. And where does the money come from? Well, it'll come from the rest of the budget, which we use to do staff and programs and all that stuff. And slowly but surely, we'll take money from staffing and put it toward facilities, and that's less money for teachers, less money for programs. Class sizes will start to drift up. What happens if this building becomes uninhabitable? Where are we going to put 450 kids? Where are they going to go? You know, will adjust boundaries? You know, because we do have room we have some room at rural schools, but one of the unknown things is that we accept a lot of transfers from out of district. You know, and we'll probably accepting those. I don't think we want to do that. I'd like to think we can come up with other solutions, but where do we put 450 kids? You know, they're talking double shifts into the high school. These are just what-if scenarios. There's probably other scenarios that haven't been thought up yet, but none of them are acceptable. So this is a bond. It's expensive. We all know that. But it's gonna preserve it's gonna give the kids at the middle school here a real school. This is not a real school. This is an amalgamation of the leftovers of the high school. And it preserves the rural structure. You know, it puts real money in the rural buildings, and it leaves them in their place for decades to come. And I think that's what both communities want. I think Owen calls it the great compromise. And it is. It's a compromise. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. I hope it passes. It will pass. And in 5 years, 10 years, people will be very thankful. They'll look back and they'll go, that was expensive. It still is expensive. It's worth it. It's worth it. So,
Tom, can I ask you to make sure I understand your thinking? So you're thinking like a potential. We're not talking that this is going to happen, but a potential could be if we had to redraw boundaries, shift kids around, like the shell game. I really liked that. Yeah. Move kids into some of the K buildings that currently have a lot of transfer students. You're saying that those transfer students would be displaced.
That's
potentially.
Potentially.
Therefore, decreasing our ADM and making our financial position less secure.
Yeah, I forgot that. It's an interesting thing. I think 7%. We have like 10% of our students are transfer in, and we have like 2 or 3% of our students move out. So we have a net gain of 7% of our students are from out of district, and so 7% of our ADM comes from transfers in. If over time we had to slowly stop doing those, we would lose that 7% funding, and that's 7% of your budget. That's a lot of money, and that helps fund everything. You know, it helps fund all these great programs that this district offers.
And staff.
Covers the overhead, covers program staff, you know, all the good stuff. This is a great school district. This bond preserves it as it runs right now. And I wholeheartedly encourage people to just please vote yes.
I have a question on the back of that. It's probably a Steve question because I've been thinking about this a lot. The money to replace schools or roofs, or say a boiler goes out, does that come out of the general fund?
Yes.
The savings of the district, I mean, are you able to disclose kind of where we're at right now for savings? Because I know we have a goal, or you thought it was about 5 million, is that right?
Well, our ending fund balance was above 5 million 5 years or so ago. Ending fund balance, June 30th, 2022 was 2 million. This year, we're probably, June 2023, closer to about $1 million.
So it feels weird to have a discussion like this. My concern's been like, I think the roof of the high school is like 5 million itself, right? To be replaced, or it's been projected to be that. Other schools, the 3 mil, I'm just riffing here. I know it's quite expensive. So we don't really have the money.
No.
For any kind of catastrophic loss of any one of our buildings.
Not something like that. The Robert Frost boilers went out last year to the tune of over $200,000. We had some other projects budgeted that we didn't do, but we still spent more than we were planning. James Street wing roof the year before, summer of 2022, $134,000 just for temporary fixes for a building we want to get out of. We're still paying $235,000 a year in debt service payments to Columbia Bank on a $2,550,000 loan that we took out in 2015 when the 2014 bond failed, just to get this building usable. And we spent an average of $100,000 a year on this building in the 7 years of operation, not including just custodial and basic supplies, including that $134,000 on the roof. This wing's had to be done as well as many other things, and I'm sure Brett could list off more of the projects than myself.
So Steve, would it be honest to say that this building potentially can take away the money that would be used for other projects at other buildings just because it is an emergency and we have to get it done?
Say that again.
So like, do projects here that are unexpected, like you said, 100,000 a year, like was that planned? Did we expect to spend 100,000?
Well, you know, our facilities budget typically runs 10 to 11% of the general fund, but of course, you know, a great deal of that's going to the people that you know, our maintenance people, our custodians and managers, and so we usually have anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million planned for special projects, ones that we plan for and try to rotate around the district based on, you know, need. And also we set aside anywhere from 80 to 150,000 just for kind of unexpected, and know we might have to rotate a project. And, you know, Robert Frost wasn't on the budget, but, you know, we had to do that. Obviously, before it got cold, we had to fix it. And we've been planning, I think, for 5 years now to resurface the high school parking lot. But that just keeps getting, you know, shoved down the road. And, you know, we had the central hall basement situation this summer. That wasn't a real high cost, but there's always things that come up that we don't plan for, but we always plan for within that $500,000 to $1 million, kind of plan for things we know that are in the top 5 on the list, and things that we know are just going to come up. But you know, the debt service payment that I mentioned, that loan with now Umpqua Bank retires July of 2028. It was a 13-year loan, and we do receive anywhere from $125,000 to $200,000 a year in construction excise tax from City of Silverton projects, as well as in Marion County within our school district boundaries. But unfortunately, all that money has to go towards the debt service payments. You know, whereas we could be, you know, building back up in a capital project fund if we didn't have the debt service payment to be able to build up some more money for projects.
So I have just want to finish my thought process on this. Essentially, every classroom we have here is necessary because we just don't have a lot of room. Now I don't know who makes decisions, how that happens, when a school is no longer habitable, when it's deemed unsafe. I'd have to default to other people. But let's play the game. Say it does. For some reason, the school, we can't have it. It's not safe. Well, then where would we put the kids? And
So we'd have to either stop taking inter-district transfers because we just don't have room.
Right.
But that to me is completely unacceptable because we have some parents already that have kids in the district, say they're Maclay, and all their siblings are already here. I will never go for like, you got to kick people out if they're out of the district because they already started here. All their friends are here.
Yeah.
So then, well, so say we now have to put everybody out in the other classroom. Well, didn't we just sign some new rules on classroom sizes with teachers? So then I don't even know if we could afford the payroll increases that would come with the extra stress, plus just the stress the teachers would have from all the extra kids in a room. Like, everything around, like, we cannot have this. There is no good solutions here. We have to get this thing through. Anyways, sorry, that's it.
I want to thank Jennifer and Aaron for starting the conversation. I think as prudent public servants, we have to start kind of thinking through these things. I think, obviously, the bond, we've really shown what the purchase price gets all of the different schools, but we haven't really had the conversation about what happens if it were not to pass. And I think that's an important conversation to have because I do think that there is a misconception that things will just continue as is, and I think we're starting to realize that that's just not possible. So starting to look at what those options would look like, again, just so everyone has a good idea that we as board members, as a committee, would be faced with some pretty tough decisions that I don't think anyone in our collective district would like. You know, to Josh's point, if this school fails, where do we put 400 kids? Like, that's going to have a significant, probably negative impact at every other school, whether we do double shifts at the high school, whether we start busing everyone to the K-8s, we're going to have increased class size. So I think those are conversations that we should start wrapping our minds around. Hopefully we don't have to, but for us as board members to really start preparing about like what that would look like. And, you know, about a year ago, when I really started kind of paying attention to this, that was my biggest concern about what would the impact if it doesn't pass. I appreciate our public comments tonight to, again, bring attention to the impacted specific schools, specific financial impact that some people may feel, and maybe that burden is not felt equally. So again, just I think it's worth the conversation having now, so that, again, we've got a little bit of time to think about it. Again, hopefully we won't have to face those decisions, but I just don't want to be caught off guard if it comes to it and we haven't thought about it and started really thinking about what that looks like. And to Tom's point, we're not exactly sure when that would be. Maybe it's a year or two. But as I understand it, like, the current situation would not remain the same. And I think that's an important realization.
I think one thing that's very apparent is that some of our taxpayers and everybody get, I guess, hung up on some of the things that have gone on before, and whether they're right or wrong, at this moment right now, it doesn't matter. It'd be fool's gold to say that mistakes haven't been made. There's been mistakes made. There's also been a lot of good decisions made too. And the best thing we can do is to make sure we keep to a minimum. I mean, we're not going to be perfect either. And keep to a minimum mistakes and not hearing and not addressing things in a timely fashion and this sort of thing. But one thing that's very apparent is certain conditions can't be rectified. Most of us put it with our house or our machine shed or our barn or whatever structures we have, and talk to it in those terms, which has some validity, but then again it doesn't. Unfortunately, as a people, sometimes we're victims of our own things in this country as far as the way things are done. And different laws have been passed for different reasons, and we could discuss those all day. But the bottom line is, we do have, when it comes to construction, there's certain laws that's got to be met as far as wages and everything on those kind of endeavors, bidding processes, everything needs to be followed along the line. And we'd be lying if saying a certain amount of those things don't raise up costs beyond what, you know, I would be doing at my house for the same type of work, for example. And safety requirements and all this, justifiably so, because we're talking about other people's kids. And so I think some people get hung up on that. And it's not that it should be pushed aside and it should be looked at. But then when we come to talking about the what if, yeah, it's not going to be status quo, because status quo keeps aging. You know, this building wasn't in great shape when moved in, borrowed money to get it up to shape for putting into. And it's going to keep deteriorating from the standpoint that things can't, there's not enough capital to fix things right the way they ideally should be fixed. And so there's going to be some tough decisions, and we can't sit here in this group right now say we are or aren't going to do these certain things if the bond doesn't pass. But the bottom line is there's going to have to be some significant changes, and there's going to be a lot of people that no matter what the decisions are, aren't going to be pleased with them, because it won't be a win-win situation by any stretch of the imagination. It'll be a lose-lose decisions they have to make. And they'll be tough. And we'll have to take a lot of things into consideration. First, our students, and our staff, and then what's the bottom line as far as numbers to fix it, you know, budget-wise. And but it won't be pretty. I think all of us, we could agree, if it didn't pass, we'll do the best we can to make it the least impactful, but it's going to be huge. It will impact them in a negative sense.
Owen?
Well, I don't have any good input, I think, that hasn't already been said. I don't have any ideas on the matter. I probably prefer to talk about it more after, and, you know, hopefully we don't have to talk about it after, but prefer to talk about it down the road rather than kind of brainstorm ideas here. But yeah, I don't think I have anything additional to add.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Yeah, one thing that came up, and and this is something else we discussed at the PTC meeting, especially at Evergreen this last week, that I think every one of our school communities may have wanted to see something different about the bond, or personally, I may have wanted to see something different about the bond, or Josh, you're on the committee, right? But at the end of the day, we have to almost take a step back and say that there is no perfect bond in any history of any school district, right? The perfect bond would fix everything we have, but our community can't afford that, right? But the bond we have right now is what's perfect for us right now. Again, there is no perfect bond. Again, there's things that each one of our citizens wish they would have had, or wish it wouldn't have included. So both sides of the equation, but for what we need right now, it's the perfect bond to keep our district viable long term, or at least the next 20 years. But yeah, I would just ask folks in the community just to think about that. That it may not be perfect, but it is something that will meet the needs at every one of our school communities, which is unprecedented in the history of the Silver Falls School District. No bond has ever done that, but this bond will. Hillary Dimitrescu's here, and I'm going to use your term, which I don't mean to put you on the spot, Hillary, but I loved it. You said it at one of the meetings. It's a stewardship investment in our children, and I truly believe that. It's not perfect, but it truly is for our kids now, and then generation of Silver Falls kids in the future. So I think if we can try to think about that, it really changes our perspective on how we see this bond.
Yeah, it's certainly not perfect, and at the same time, we have polling data that shows that we can pass it. If we kick the can down the road again, we might not have such favorable conditions. And so, like, this is the time. Like, we can go out again in May if this one doesn't pass. And I think that's a really tough sell. I think that's going to be not our best shot. I think this is our best shot. And so I like your idea of, let's not make perfect the enemy of good. And I think something that Phil said about equating it to personal finance, that is, I see it time and time again, that we have to maintain this building if we plan to have students here. So like you could see, Brett, it pains him to have to put money into this building, but we have to do it. And that's not good for our entire district, because that money could be spent in other ways, in investments. And for here, it's just keeping the doors open. And so we really need this bond in order to get out of that cycle and start using our money wisely. Any last thoughts? All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. So this is supposed to be specific to discussion and action items. If you'd like to speak and are attending virtually, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. If you're attending in person, please approach the public comment table located in front of the board. Is there anybody? Oh, did that person come back?
No.
Okay. And there's nobody else?
Not yet.
Okay. Anybody in the live audience that would like to address? Okay, Eliza, please come forward. And Eliza, would you please indicate your name, your relationship to the district, and the topic that you're going to speak on?
Yes, I'm Eliza Torlin, and I am a parent here in the district. I've been very involved with this. And I just wanted
So you're going to talk about the bond?
To talk about the bond.
And for you're representing yourself or a group?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 minutes.
I'll be very brief. I've been involved with this with the Long Range Facility Planning Committee and the Bond Advisory Committee, and I've attended a lot of the listening sessions, and I am now a part of the Political Action Committee, which is called the Silver Falls Neighbors for Schools, in case anyone wants to find out information. I just wanted to bring up a question that I hear regularly, which is why is $75 million? They think that's very expensive for this school. And also that the allocations for the other projects at the other schools are also very expensive. And they are. I just wanted to say that when we started this in 2020, or 2019, but really when the meetings got rolling over Zoom, for long-range facility planning, the estimates for the cost of this school would be $45 million. There's a lot of escalation that has occurred in the time between now and then, COVID, the cost of construction materials, and just construction in general. And I just wanted to say that there are built-in escalations that are there. So hopefully things won't escalate a lot, and we'll be able to do much larger projects than we already have listed. That's probably unlikely with the way that society works these days. It's expensive, but it will only get more expensive. When I look at the history of the second phase of the high school bonding, in 1998, they tried to run a bond for just over $19 million, and they weren't able to pass the second phase bond until 2007, at which time it was $45 million. Let's just do this now. It's only going to get more expensive, and I also love all of our schools.
Eliza, can I just ask you a question while you're there? So by escalation costs, you mean that the bond financing that we have on the table now has escalation, yes, contingencies built in?
Yes. There's dual contingencies built in for the middle school project, for both Steve.
Yeah, it's two different things. I don't remember the exact words.
Well, yeah, I want to say it's for construction and for development. But basically, there is a lot of money there to make sure that this project can be completed. And the intention behind the development of the bond is to make sure that everything that is allocated for the other schools also gets to go to the other schools.
That's right. Thank you, Eliza. Anybody else in the audience want to approach the table?
Nobody online.
All right. Well, then we are at action items, but we don't have any action items, right? And so future agenda item. Oh, yes, we need to approve that. Somebody needs to make a motion to do that.
I'll move to approve the Bond Oversight Committee as shared by Scott Drew this evening.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Bond Oversight Committee as shared by Scott Drew this evening. Any discussion? I just want to say again, thank you to every single person, all 29 people who applied. We really appreciate you. And it was a hard work to make those decisions.
Phil,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
all in favor.
All right. Now we're at future agenda item requests. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring to the whole board's attention that we might add to a future agenda? All right, seeing none, without objection, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.